Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Turning Base podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Redeker, and normally I am joined with my brother, Brian, but he's kind of got caught up in a couple things, so hopefully he'll be joining us a little bit later in the show. We'll just kind of see what happens, but today we do have a special guest joining us. We have Clayton Korn, president of Scissortail Aviation Advisors and a certified aviation manager. Welcome, Clayton.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you on here. So I got to start out and ask, how did you get your start in aviation?
Well, I grew up in West Texas, out in the middle of nowhere, and we had a lot of folks had planes. It's a lot faster to get there than in the suburban, but we had a neighbor that had a Cessna 210.
Okay.
And he took us up flying one day, or I think I was probably 8 years old. And I'll never forget the feeling, because I was sitting in the co-pilot seat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we were taking off on runway 22. I know that now. I didn't know that at the time, but it makes sense.
I was like, that's a really good memory.
The reason I say that is because I've flown in and out of that airport now, a million times, but it was right at sunrise. And so the sun had just come up over the horizon over my left shoulder. And I'm looking out and I watched the shadow of the airplane separate from the runway, and it was just the most glorious thing I'd ever experienced in my life up to that point. And so I was hooked, and just hooked hard. And everything about my life kind of revolved around airplanes. I didn't get my pilot's license until later. And that's kind of another story. Right when 9/11 happened, I thought, I was living in Nashville. I don't know how much of my background you read up on, but I'm an erstwhile professional musician. So I toured the world with a bunch of folks out of Nashville and Texas eventually. But anyway, I was living in Nashville, and I decided then that if I was going to go get it, that they'd probably make it harder to do because of the circumstances around everything that, around the 9/11. So anyway, I decided to go, and I just went down to the International Airport, and I found a little flight school, and there I went. And so I got my license in 2002 or early 2003. So I've been flying for nearly 25 years now. And, but all that was a hobby for the longest time. Really, I moved back to Texas and had a family and whatnot, and decided that I couldn't stay traveling at least as much as I was touring. Yeah. And so I was like, what's next? And I think the next progression for me was aviation. So I had some good friends that had an outfit there at Austin Executive Airport. I called them up. That company's called Riata Jet, if you're curious. And I said, hey, you need a hand around maybe selling airplanes and whatnot. And there I went and learned just so much. And now through the years, that was, I don't know, I'd say nearly a decade ago. But now through the years, I've become a certified aviation manager. I'm commercial pilot, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I'm doing.
I'll tell you.
Last year I hung out my own shingle with Scissortail, and so we're building that now.
Scissortail, yeah. It is kind of amazing. I don't know exactly when I started flying. My grandpa had an Arrow and kept it at the local airport, and he would, his passion was aviation and flying. And so if it was a beautiful day, he'd be like, hey, let's go flying. My dad is a pilot. And so we spent a lot of time at the airport, at the local small airport. And yes, that time when you leave that runway and you see the shadow, and it is just an amazing thing. And we live in Michigan, right on Lake Michigan, and going in the evenings and watching the sunset when you're like 3,000 feet, 2,000 feet in the air, so watching it set over Lake Michigan is just one of the most amazing things that you can see.
I don't doubt it at all. I know. I've got pictures, just over the years of sunsets and sunrises flying, and that is the time to fly,
yes.
Isn't it? It's
yes, it is. There's just something magical about it, and people that haven't experienced it, like, you need to, because once you do, you're hooked. Like, it's an amazing thing. So
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't
no, I was just gonna
interrupt you.
say, like it is. I can still remember it, and every time I go up, I'm a student pilot. I don't have my full license yet, but whenever I go flying with friends, if it's in the evening or early morning, just it is an amazing thing. Every time I go up and see, it's different than commercial. Like it's different than flying commercial. But when you're in a small plane and you're only a couple thousand feet up, just going along the coast or whatever, it is truly amazing.
Just, yep, absolutely. The greatest thing.
It is. It is. So give us a little background about Scissortail Aviation. What do you do? Who are your typical clients? Who do you help?
Yeah. So we are. I'm a consultancy, and that's a very broad term. I'm a bit of a student when it comes to aviation. So when I figure out there's something that I don't know, I kind of have thrown myself at learning it, and I think that's kind of reflected in the CAM certification and whatnot. But really, I think one of the main niches I've fallen into is 135 compliance and the certification process and building manuals, et cetera. I mean, that's one
Okay. Yeah.
unexpected expertise that I didn't really know that I would get into. But I started working with a 135 company and help them, initially help them build out training programs and their manuals and whatnot. And that's something I really kind of enjoyed doing. I didn't, as a musician, think that I would like the technical aspect of it, but maybe it's just a scratch in a different, itch in a different part of my brain.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but anyway, I've done that. And then a lot of it is acquisitions, management, sales, et cetera. So just, kind of a big part of what I do is financial modeling for potential clients or for
Hmm.
clients that are looking at getting into maybe business jet for the first time. So diving in and kind of helping them understand the real costs of it. At one point, I've written a book. It's a bit outdated now, called "So You Want to Buy a Jet," but I need to update that and get that out there for folks. But it's just kind of a first time buyer's guide on
Okay.
the real cost, because I don't think anyone really kind of goes into it fully wide eyed when they decide that this is what they want to do, and it can be a very expensive venture, right?
I think aviation buying, even a small Piper or Cessna, all the way up to a jet. I think there's a lot of expense that goes into it, and then the bigger the plane, the more complex it is. That cost has just gotta exponentially go up. So
Absolutely, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it is kind of amazing. Is I want to buy an Arrow is actually what I want to buy, and so like I've started to map out the cost and everything, and the cost of the airplane is actually not necessarily always the most expensive
Yeah,
part.
that's right.
It,
Buy
it,
the
it's
airplane.
everything else.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
I've owned the Comanches. I've owned SR20, Cirrus SR20, and had interest in a few other things. And
yeah,
yeah, those bills are never fun to get, but
right.
it keeps it in the air.
It
So
does. It does. So you kind of operate on both sides of the charter world as kind of a broker and an operator.
that's right.
So what's kind of one of the biggest disconnects that you've seen between those two groups from two different sides?
Well, this is a tough question to answer because um, from an operator standpoint, uh, I might should have given this some more thought when you sent me the questions beforehand. But I think the biggest disconnect really is that most of the brokerage side, nobody's very rarely do you see a pilot or somebody who's really in tune with the operations little side of things, and so they don't
Hmm.
necessarily understand uh, the complexity of what's going on. From a broker, uh, you know, call now there's so many platforms that you
Hmm.
can get on to find, to source your flight and whatnot. It really is a very, very low barrier of entry to become a charter broker, which is kind of why it was a little bit low hanging fruit when I started my company. Friends and family were calling and asking for, if I could arrange trips, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just add this to my list of things that I do.
Like, yeah, sure, I can do that.
Uh, but I think that that's the biggest thing, is not being a pilot or not having really operational understanding of
Mm,
what's going on. I'm not saying that a lot don't, but I mean, it's just that tends to be something people, when an airplane goes AOG, which is parlance for aircraft on the
On the
ground,
ground.
meaning
Yep.
that it's not flying. It becomes a mad scramble, I think folks tend to get hot under the collar when they don't understand. Look, hey, nobody's not wanting this airplane to go. A switch isn't working or a light's not coming on that's supposed to, and we've got things called MELs that we have to follow
Yeah.
and procedures when that happens, it happens. And so I think that that's another thing for the flying public as well. I mean, the end client is not understanding, hey, I've got a big important meeting that I've got to get to, and this airplane I paid for isn't going, and I'm paying for a premium service. And the poor broker kind of gets stuck in between that, but having a real operational understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, and then also having a really strong network of operators that, hey, if that happens to you, you can get on the phone and you've got the next person, the next jet in line, or you can kind of work out a rescue plan. But that I think that's probably one of the biggest disconnects anyway.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think you're right. Most people don't understand airplanes are incredibly complex, and when things go wrong typically in a bad fashion,
That's
right?
right.
And so you don't want that happening in the air. And so it is amazing the amount of people that really make every flight happen. And so most people don't understand how that actually all works.
That's correct. And one thing to keep in mind is everything from the top down is safety focused. It's
Yes,
safety
absolutely.
focused, safety, safety, safety. The FAA has mandated that 135 implement SMS programs, safety management systems,
Hmm.
and that's it. It kind of shines a light on the safety culture around what we do in the business, but that's the biggest thing is everything revolves around safety. And so when an airplane doesn't go, it's because something said that if it goes, it's unsafe. And
Hmm.
so, if you look at everything through that lens, um, it becomes a little bit more easy to understand as far as, especially from an emotional standpoint, because it does become emotional when your airplane's not flying.
Right? And you have somewhere to be,
That's right.
and it's not, and that's never fun. What uh when you kind of look at different things, what's kind of one of the biggest mistakes that you see in charter operations when they're trying to grow, they're trying to get more clients? Are there mistakes that you see that they kind of make and they're like, that's a misstep? Or what are some things that as they're trying to grow, get more clients, that they're missing?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is underestimating the complexity of the sales process.
Mm. Okay.
Um, I think, it's easy to go out and get a couple of airplanes. I say it's easy. It's not easy, but you get a couple of airplanes, you get it on the certificate. That's assuming that you've had the certificate. It's everything is incredibly complicated when it comes to the FAA and when it
I
comes
get
to,
right.
you know, and so I think underestimating the complexity of that. But I mean, if you are established and you've maybe got one aircraft, understanding the sales process, getting people on the airplane, getting people to that it's safe, but then also being able to turn around quotes in seconds when it comes to dealing with brokers and people that are bringing you business. The idea of all of this is speed, because that's this is a 24/7 business,
Mm. Yeah.
and I think um, there's my puppy in the background here. I think that you know. Uh, it's really easy to underestimate the difficulty of making the sale from an operator standpoint, and building that clientele, and then also gaining the trust of brokers who are bringing you business, and having repeat non-brokered clients.
Hmm.
I think that to me would be one of the largest misconceptions going into it.
Yeah, I think those are all good points, and I think I see the trust come up a lot, building that trust, because at the end of the day, I heard somebody tell me this once. At the end of the day, we are people, and people do business with people. Yes, we represent companies, and that's what pays the bills. But like, you got to have that trust in the people, in the business, in the equipment to get there safely. Those are all that trust thing is a huge thing that I hear a lot of people talk about.
It really is. And going back even to the AOG subject for a minute, it's it's safety focused, but if you have an operator that's continually uh, having airplanes break, that could be a maintenance issue that you have to,
Yeah.
that's another trust issue.
Hmm.
And so, you want to make sure that the operators that you work with from a broker standpoint uh, are reliable for one,
Yeah. Right.
and they have and fly good equipment. But I also worked with operators who they fly older equipment, but they are consistently flying. Very very little downtime. So uh,
Yeah. Sometimes a lot of hours isn't necessarily always a bad thing because they are getting used and they're well maintained. I mean, even the airplane that I'm flying, I think it's got like 13,000 hours on it. But it's like it goes really good and it flies really good because there's a lot of people on it, and then the maintenance is up on it. So, um, sometimes the hours aren't the whole story.
that's no, that's exactly right. I mean, a well taken care of airplane at any age you know is valuable. You can have an airplane that's 2 or 3 years old. If it's not taken care of,
Yeah.
it's 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 a paperweight. So
Yes. Mechanical things do like to move. They don't
they,
like to sit.
that is exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So if talking about these operators, like think of one that has like really nailed the customer experience. What has really kind of set them apart when it comes to that customer experience that you're like, yeah, they got this.
It's responsiveness, 100% responsiveness, keeping
Okay.
you in the loop. And there are new programs and whatnot that kind of help out with that. But knowing that when you call, it doesn't matter what time of day. If you're requesting an ASAP quote at 11 o'clock at night, somebody's manning the phones or manning the email and
Hmm.
able to help you do that. One of my favorite operators here, again, they fly older equipment, but they are impeccable with their maintenance. And I've never once, I put, several dozen flights with them, and I've never once had even a hiccup. Um, and then, it's also talking to your clientele afterwards and their experience with the operator, and making sure that they're comfortable with the crews and they're comfortable. The airplanes are,
Yeah.
are presented nicely and things like that. I think, yeah. So as long as I keep getting positive feedback, on these
That's a good thing. Yeah.
operators, then yeah. So I don't know if I should name them, but they're a wonderful outfit here out of actually San Antonio, where I am right now, called Merlin One.
Okay.
They fly Cessna Citation 650s, which is the threes and the sixes and the sevens, and yeah, every time I've had a wonderful experience working with them. They're my go-to, and unless somebody needs something larger than that. So.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So when people calculate the cost to operate, what's one of the biggest expenses? We kind of talked about like the airplane is not necessarily the big expense, it's everything else. What's the like, is there a common theme to like what they overlook?
It would absolutely be crew, the cost of crew,
Crew. Okay.
the cost of crewing the airplane. I think that's the biggest shock when I approach an owner, when somebody asks for um, a cost analysis. The crew is always the one where they go bug eyed over, why am I paying this amount? The fact is, we're in business aviation, and you have to have a certain, so especially for Part 135, right? For Part 135, a crew is time limited, just like they are on the airlines.
Okay.
And so if you're going to fly a certain number of hours a year, if you expect that for your cost offsets, then you have to have a certain amount of crew, whether that's one or two captains, certainly one or two SICs, depending on the type of aircraft that you're operating. But the biggest thing too is retention. I think that that's a big part of what a big challenge that we face in business aviation is crew and talent retention, because quality of life and pay grade, et cetera, we're competing with the airlines.
Yeah.
And I know a
Yeah.
lot of folks consider, flying an airline, or let's just say driving a bus, right? Well, in the airline world, I mean, in the charter world, you're driving a limousine, if that's
Yeah. That's a good way of
the
putting it. Yeah.
the parallel. But driving that bus, you also know when you're flying. you've got a set schedule, and in our world, whether it's Part 135 or even Part 91, tends to even kind of be worse because you might be working for, let's say, one single individual,
Mm,
and you're at their beck and call. So it may
yeah.
be Christmas Eve, and they decide that they want to go to Barbados. That's their prerogative, and that's what they've earned. But you, as a pilot, have to be prepared to walk away from the family and go do that for them. And that
Yeah.
doesn't fit a lot of lifestyles. And so I think when people look at crew and they don't understand why they're paying so much, well, you're paying for that service. You're paying for that level of service, and you're paying for, we don't have the seniority chains that they have necessarily in the airlines, but hopefully you're paying for a highly skilled and sort of a senior level captain, and that's not to say there aren't some wonderful pilots with lower time. I don't necessarily think that time is necessarily the best meter for skill. But
Very true.
um, anyway, the point is that a captain on a let's just say a Challenger 300 is going to cost you 250, $300,000 a year, and you're going to be paying a little more than half that for qualified SIC. Plus, you have to send them to school every year. School, well, an initial is going to cost you $50,000, and every recurrent is going to be another 25,000. Those are
Yeah.
round numbers, but
Yep.
but people just don't understand the crew. And the airplane is one thing. You've got your fixed costs, you've got your variable costs, but
hmm
getting and paying for a quality crew and for a number of that satisfies the amount of flying that you expect, either your own Part 91 or what you expect out of your operator 135 is
hmm
that's just something you
hmm
need to understand.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point about crew in general and the hours and where they're ultimately trying to go. Because I see it a lot talking with other student pilots or other pilots in general, is that they're starting in flight school, they're working through it, but a lot of times that instructor is just working on trying to get to that magical 1,500 hour mark to make that jump over. So you could be in flight training and they're just trying to hit their mark, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and now you
They're
got to
gone.
find a new instructor, or they didn't really ever want to be an instructor, right? But they're trying to build those hours.
It's the only way. Instructing is the only way in the
Is the only way.
industry to do it without. I mean, you can buy an airplane and fly it, but every
Yeah.
hour costs you,
Yeah.
and it's the only way to do it on a cost even
Yeah.
basis. And yeah, it is. It's tough. It's tough to go out there and learn how to fly with, especially with one. I prefer. And I sought out older flight instructors like that were doing it because they wanted to do it, or that they had
Yeah.
been in the
That's a
airlines,
smart move.
and because they're not going anywhere, and there's still the level of wisdom, of learning to fly with somebody who's got 15,000 hours is they've seen it all. And,
Yeah.
and so that's, as an up and coming, if I can give any advice to someone like, you who's coming up to
Right.
it's learning to fly, it's find some old guys, find that old guy with a beat up 172 because you're going to learn so much more. In my opinion, again, I'm not saying that there aren't great young instructors, but and that may be the way that you would like to go. And certainly going through the what is it, 141 flight school or
Yep.
whatever. It's
Yep.
you don't have a lot of choice, but if you're doing it on your own, go find the old guy at the local and fly with him. He's great. They always
Yeah.
are.
And ultimately I want to buy my own airplane to finish my license and not always have to rent the entire time, so I get just more comfortable and able to fly when I want to, because there's already been times where it's like they have three warriors here, but I want to go flying. Nope. One's down for maintenance and the other two are booked. So
Yeah,
you're like,
I
nope,
know.
not going flying right now.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk in the news about AI. AI is changing everything. So when it comes to charter and this heavily relationship driven business, have you seen AI change this, have an impact on this yet?
Not directly in the relationship standpoint yet.
hmm
I know that there is some things coming down the pipe, especially in, let's say, quoting and things to that effect, to really speed up that process. I'm involved in a few of those
Sure.
endeavors myself, but the I think I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And I think if they do it right, it's going to help. I don't think that
Hmm.
AI is going to take away take the human element, at least not right now, not in the
Yeah.
extremely near future. But I
Right.
mean, who
Right.
knows? This has been such a whirlwind. What, 2 years ago, we didn't even really know what it was. It was,
That's so true.
and look where we are now. And so, who's to say? It's really tough to nail that down. I think that just the amount of data that it can process, I think where it will really, really help on the operator side is with your maintenance tracking and the things
That's a good
that,
point.
and the technical aspects of things. I saw a tool the other day from it's built for basically brokers, sales brokers aircraft brokerage.
Okay.
But this outfit has built a camera or built an app for your phone that you can put over a logbook and just flip as fast as you can every page of that logbook. And it automatically scans and organizes every page as fast as you can turn the page. Then it takes that, organizes everything into a complete report. So it can tell you every AD, every 8130, every 337, everything that's in the background. And then you can walk around the airplane and take 250 photos of the airplane from any angle. And then it composites that into a full 3D model of the airplane. So you can show it. So, I
It's
mean,
incredible.
it's absolutely beyond, it blows my mind. Or from, let's just say, so every aircraft that goes onto a 135 certificate has to be what's called conformed, and it goes through conformity.
Okay.
And to do that, you have to present the FAA with every record and be able to find anything that they ask for at any point. And then they have to, and you're checking, making sure that the fire extinguishers are
Hmm.
correct and in date. Everything about this process it's cumbersome. And it took, last one I did took me 9 months
Oh,
to
wow.
get everything done for the airplane. And that might have been because a lot of it I was just fumbling around learning where I was going.
Yeah.
But if you take that kind of technology into this, where literally it takes a day to go through 16 tubs of, for a jet, okay, you're gonna on a Cessna, you're gonna have a big binder
Right.
like
Yeah.
this, or
Yeah.
all the logbooks. On a jet, I mean, it's copious, it's voluminous, it's just as much. It's 6, 7 tubs of just books and pages and reams of binders, and so and the older the jet, the more that builds up. But the point is that if you could take that and just spend a day flipping through and digitally intaking all of that, being able to catalog it, even it reads handwriting. And so and I've seen mechanics handwriting. It's not that easy to understand, but
So true.
so I see that really, like, AI in the background as far as operationally is just going to be
Yeah.
a game changer.
Yeah. And it's almost like
Especially,
querying like a database then. Like I need information on this particular thing, and then it has this all this volume, and it just, here you go. This is it. And then if the FAA or they need to see the written documentation, it can tell you it's in this book on this page, and then you can quickly go to it.
yeah. And I'm really curious to see where the FAA goes on this too, because right now, if you can email, I think now, but you used to, I mean, not until just very recently, you had to write a letter if you wanted the records, to see what the FAA had on an airplane. You would write a letter, send it to Oklahoma City, and they would send you a CD-ROM. They still send you the CD-ROM, but I think you can now request it with email. But uh, that's what we're coming from, is
Yeah.
literally a CD-ROM that's not indexed. It's just a CD-ROM with a whole bunch of files on it of the different STCs and 337s and whatnot that have been filed with the FAA over the years for whatever the airplane is.
Hmm.
So I think I would love to see this undertaken at the FAA level. I think that, and I had an interesting discussion the other day with an ex-FAA guy, and who still kind of consults with them. And I think that the FAA has they outsource a lot of stuff. A good example is the guy that gives you your check ride, your DPE.
Hmm. Yeah.
He doesn't work for the FAA. Now you can go to the FSDO and you can request a ride with the FAA, and they'll give you one. But most of the time you're doing it through a DPE. And so that's a good example. I think that as this thing, as technology, I don't think that they're going to implement it at the FAA level. What they're going to start doing is outsourcing to
Mm.
companies who have this ability to help them modernize and I'm hoping that we see that sooner rather than later.
Sure.
But that's just one. So as far as AI is concerned, I just
Yeah.
see it. I see it maybe on the sales side. I think that it's still a face-to-face business,
But yeah.
but really technically in the background with maintenance and all of that stuff, it's going to be a big.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're kind of running low on time, so I want to hit some of these fun questions to before we close this out. So, if you could pick any plane to fly or fly in, what would it be?
Ah. Well, I think every kid of my generation dreamed of flying like an SR-71 Blackbird,
Well,
but I
this
think
is
that,
true. Yes.
I think at the end of the day, by the way, and I've got to remember, I think it's called Flying the SR-71, but there's a book out there, and I'll see if I can send it for your show notes. But
Okay. Yeah.
it's wonderful. It's basically the author goes through every item on the checklist, but with every item on the checklist, flying a whole mission, but every item on the checklist has a story behind it because he's flown it so much, and it's just it's
Oh,
amazing.
that
So
sounds good.
anyway, yeah, it's
Yes.
here's a little tidbit I'll give you. If you were to take off in your Piper Arrow and somehow fly at 450 knots, and you maintain 450 knots all the way up to flight level 820, you would be going Mach 3.2. So the airspeed indicator at 82,000 feet reads 450 knots. That I just think is interesting. So if that's what their profile would basically be: take off, hold their nose up, fly at 450 knots until they got all the way up there. After anyway, that's really neat to nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
I get
Right.
it, but hey, we're nerds, so
We are.
that's a
Yeah.
fantastic thing. I want to fly in an F-16 or something like, just get that
Hmm.
the thrill one time. Never done that.
Yes. Yeah. I'd love
But,
to. F-15, F-16. Obviously, F-14 is not going to happen anymore. But I also always thought one catapult launch and one trap on a carrier would be
yeah,
just
that's right.
an insane experience. Just one time. If I ever
Just
had the
one time.
opportunity, I would totally do it.
That's right. I think in the civil world, man, I have got just a crush on the Piaggio Avanti P80,
Oh,
P180.
okay.
And I've honestly never flown it. I just love the whole idea behind it. It's just I love turboprop technology,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that seeing what Bakar has now bought Piaggio, and they're really turning that around, and because of that, we're not seeing very many of them left on the market. But
Mm-hmm.
because there's more confidence in the aftermarket, maintenance side of things. But I would love to kind of get involved in the operation of one of those. But
Sure. Okay.
that just kind of has me. I think they're really cool looking.
Those are cool. I know what you're talking about. Well, I think one of those flew into Muskegon one time, and I was like, I saw it because I lived real close to the airport, and I was like, what is that? Because
Yeah,
it's unique looking.
they are so cool. Yeah,
And I was like, I had to look that up. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like
yeah.
that's a really cool plane. What's one thing that you wish the aviation industry understood better about you and what you do?
About me and what I do, that's a loaded question. I think that there's a lot of me's out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys like me who are out there just they call themselves consultants, whatever. I think it's just um, the I don't know. This is a really tough question. I'm involved in a lot of levels with like our South Texas Business Aviation Association. I'm getting more involved with NBAA at that level. I think that you know I love the community, and I don't know. I think maybe let me reframe that question a
Okay.
little bit, and I think maybe it's let's talk about what maybe the public needs to understand rather
That's a good
than
point. Yeah.
the other way around. Is I think that especially with business aviation, it's really easy to take a look at a business jet for somebody who isn't in the industry, and have a bit of a look at it with a side eye. I'll just say, because it's burning more gas.
Mm,
It's maybe a fat cat sitting in the back, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the biggest thing we need to understand, or the public needs to understand, is that this industry is a blue collar industry. It's an industry full of pilots. It's an industry full of um, mechanics. All of us are doing. We may be working for somebody in the back, but that it's typically a corporation, and there are very good reasons that these folks are flying. And so
Yeah.
and frankly, the environmental impact of business aviation is honestly, it's minuscule. And I do not say that to in any way want to blunt the efforts of anybody out there doing, like this, the SAF, the sustainable aviation fuels, and any of that stuff. Everything we can do for the environment to improve that is certainly welcome. But
yeah, absolutely.
I just, the impact that business aviation and general aviation has on the environment is minuscule compared to other industries altogether. Honestly, aviation's the same way. I mean, just, in large globally. So I think what we need to understand is that it makes a huge economic impact on the places that it touches, and the families it supports, the kind of people that support, the people who are working in the background. This is a blue collar industry, and I think that more people need to maybe view it that way rather than through the lens of it's doing more harm than good.
Yeah, and it's just a fancy multi-million-dollar toy that somebody has.
Yeah. In some cases that may be the truth.
It does happen, but most of the time it's a tool.
It's a tool. That's right.
And it supports, there's a lot of people.
Yeah. And they're time machines. It doesn't matter if you're flying a Cessna or you're flying a Gulfstream. They're time machines. And so, what these folks are doing is buying time back, and whether that's for family or business or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, Clayton, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on Turning Base. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. You can hit me up on my website, which is scissortailconsulting.aero. You can also find me through LinkedIn. I think it's Clayton Korn. I don't know, but you can look up Scissortail. I do a weekly post and talk about the news of the week and whatnot there. And then my email is clayton@scissortailconsulting.aero.
Yeah,
so
and your little your weekly thing came out, which is actually how I first learned about it. It popped up on my LinkedIn. I was like, that's interesting. So I started reading it, and I was like, this is some good information in here.
Yeah, well, good. And certainly, if you have anything you'd like to include in that, let me know. I'd love to talk about it. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to probably do this again. Maybe next time we'll actually try to get Brian on the show and have a fun conversations.
You missed it, Brian. Come on, man.
Yeah, I know, right? He did miss it. Come on, next time. Next time we'll get him on here. Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thanks for everybody watching and listening on Turning Base, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, guys. Bye. Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks for flying with us on Turning Base. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your team. Want more tips and tools for marketing your aviation business? Visit us at readymarketing.net. Until next time, keep your wings level, your message clear, and your altitude high.